back early because unlike yesterday, I'm not going to do an afternoon run during the height of the heat. I had lost my voice a little bit yesterday because I think I was a bit dehydrated from the heat. I had no idea when I went to go run, it was almost 90 degrees. And I felt it when I ran because heat is my kryptonite when I go to run, guys. When I go to run, I do not like the heat. Like, I will run in the heat, but I hate it. I'll run in the cold. I'd rather run in the cold than run in the heat. And I've ran in, sub freezing temperature. It doesn't bother me. I can layer up and I'm good to go. The only thing I don't like about sub freezing temperature are when like roads are icy because then that means I can't run as fast as I want to because I have to be cognizant of slipping on ice. But your boy has never sl- slipped on ice when running. Um, I don't know. For some reason, I actually have better balance when I'm running as opposed to just slowly walking across an icy street or icy pavement. I'm guessing it has something to do with biomechanics. I wouldn't know, but yeah, it's easier for me to run and on icy streets than to walk on icy streets. To be to if that wasn't clear enough, the funniest thing was I remember several years ago running on on an icy street and completed my run. I came down to a halt because I didn't want to try to jump across the curb on the ice. And what's up, Xavier? And I stopped to walk, and I actually slipped after I started walking. And my niece saw me; she busted out laughing. And I was like, I laughed too because I was like, because I told her I was like, I didn't slip the whole time I ran. I was telling my niece, and then as soon as I stopped the run and I started walking to the house, I slipped and fell, which was hilarious. Which just shows it was safer for me to run than it was to walk. But in any case, I don't want to talk about that. Um, I want to just start this out by saying shout outs to people who sent me some cash apps. I don't know if they wanted me to reveal their name or not, but I deeply appreciate the cash apps, guys. It helps me to do what I do and helps me to, have a few extra fruit snacks or, buy new sneakers or, whatever, or support Mrs. Contrarian, of course. But I I, uh, I appreciate it a lot. So if the people who sent me the cash apps are watching, just know that I appreciate your support and I appreciate you watching as well. So let me get to some comments and very quickly, and then I'm gonna say what this live stream is about. All right. Um. So Xavier says I look like his sergeant major. That's what's up. Um. I don't know what your sergeant major looks like, but I take that as a compliment, I guess. Because some of them guys be looking old, like in the enlisted. Um, a career in the enlisted ranks can age a fellow. Like I remember my E8, my first sergeant, when I was in basic training. Dude had like at my age now, he had to be older than me than I currently am, and he looked old. Okay, I remember even telling my father that I was like, Dad, this guy, because matter of fact, I'm not even sure if the dude was even 40. I think he might have been like 38, 39. I forgot. Somehow I found out the guy's age. And I told my dad, I was like, Dad, this guy's only such and such age. He was like, son, the army will age you. Because he was prior service army himself. He was a combat medic during the Vietnam War. And I mean, he didn't he didn't get stationed overseas. By the way, he served stateside. Actually, when they when they were trying to ship him over to Vietnam is when he I think when he ETS when he ended his term of service. But anyway, AA is gonna. So our first troll of the day is getting timed out, guys. uh, Reggie says, "Have a good day." Thanks, Reggie. You do the same, buddy. Um, God 8281 says your sister told me. Okay. Oh, so we got more trolls starting off the day. Uh, Don Kitchett 1848 says, "Hello, everyone." Don Kitchett is in the house. What's up? Keisha H. Batshit Crazy is back saying, "What's up?" What's up? Um, Roland says, "A place in the world that you feel most represents who you are. What do you wear when you are feeling your very best?" I don't know Roadrunner, but I remember what Deion Sanders said. He said, "When you look good, you feel good. When you feel good, you play good. When you play good, you get paid good." So, words of wisdom from Deion Sanders. Prime time must be the money. uh, Batshit Crazy is cool. He's not a troll as far as I know. Um, it was very cool. Last string, so I have no problems. Is that Icon Media Man? Nah, buddy. I look way better than what's his name. Plus, that whole era made set black superheroes back because the only two that came out of all the stuff that came out in the 90s with black superheroes was either parodies of superheroes or very corny. So we try to forget that era of corny superheroes like Meteor Man and Blank Man, and then what was it, Shazam and Steel. All of that was fugazi. Sonic Rings. Rowan is asking a bunch of existential questions. I haven't even gotten to the crux of what this stream is going to be. But Rowan says, where do you feel most centered and happy? What do you love most about your home? I don't get where these questions are coming from. Maybe first of all, tell me the reason for the questions, and then I can answer them. But Keisha says hi. So what's up, Keisha H? Medium. Yeah, Sonic. Yeah, Medium Man had good powers, but it was still a parody of superheroes. It made black superheroes look bad. Like Meteor Man, Blank Man, they were all corny, and I could do a whole stream on that alone. But Sabiando says, "Show your hairline." I'm not here to perform for you, my friend. And this guy is another troll getting timed out. So anyway, we can go into some other things, but I just want to kind of for a second. Sorry, I'm about to do something here. I want to do a sequel to what we talked about yesterday. Yesterday, we talked about the how the pro-blackity black folks disdain interracial relationships, and how they're largely irrelevant to black men. So I want to piggyback on that from yesterday. Also, I want to talk about something that the esteemed attorney Dennis Sperling talked about 3 days ago, and so I avoided talking about it too because I didn't want to talk about it as soon as he talked about it, because that'd be unfair to him since he has his audience, and it would just look like I'm pirating from him. Plus, I have a suspicion he may have seen my content before. If so, that would be great. I don't always agree with everything he says in his podcast, but I hold the man in high respect. Not only is he a lawyer, he has a PhD in like environmental science, and he's a successful guy. He big ups the Passport Bro movement. He was a close friend of the late great Kevin Samuels. Um, so if he has ever watched this, that would be that's awesome. Also, I think I'm gonna pull back from making fun of some other content creators just because, not because I suddenly agree with them, but just because I realize, a lot goes into doing this work, which is why I can see why they've started making college courses on social media influencing and content creation. Although I completely disagree that you should get a whole degree in this. I think that'd be more worthless than a communications degree or criminal justice degree. I but I can see why they might have college courses now on content creation and being media influencers along with like photography, videography, and digital editing and all that sort of stuff. Um, if you don't care, then bounce, Steve. Um, Give me a second, guys. I'm just kicking out um, trolls back and forth. I don't feel like talking to these folks. They're stupid. I don't care if I'm boring. What might be lively? Go suck someone's dick. How about that? Sonic City of Steel was bad. I think the costume was meant. It wasn't the costume. It just it was just bad. Period. Like Steel's not a level or even a B level superhero to hold his own movie. He's only good enough to be like in someone else's movie because he was a supplemental hero, like in the whole Death of Superman thing when they had the after the Death of Superman series back in the '90s. They had the uh, the Reign of Superman, and they had all these little offshoot characters who had like parts of Superman's powers. Steel was one of those folks. So he was never someone to carry the torch as like a full blown superhero himself. He was just excuse me, he was just an auxiliary character. So there was no reason to give him his own movie. Uh, and like I said, that whole era in the '90s was like a bunch of whack black superheroes that made black superheroes look stupid. We didn't really have a good black superhero. Well, we didn't have a good black comic book character until Blade. I can't call him a superhero because he's an anti-hero. He's not a superhero. Our first black superhero, who was also the first black superhero in the comics, is Black Panther. So it was rightfully so that it was celebrated by so many people when Black Panther came out because this was the first time we had a a legit black superhero in the movies, and he was the first black superhero in the comic books. People tried to disagree with me about that on Facebook a long time ago, and I had to like bust out my nerd chops and show them that they were wrong. That almost all the other people they were mentioning came after Black Panther, and that the people who came before him weren't superheroes. So Black Panther gets the credit for that, and R.I.P. to Chad Boseman who played the character. He was a phenomenal actor who came from Howard University. Was I think financed early in his career by Denzel Washington. Spawn was good. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Spawn was good, but again, that wasn't a superhero. That was an anti-hero. So I'm pedantic when it comes to that. Like a superhero is someone you would aspire to, someone you would want your kids to be like. Either Spawn nor Blade is someone you would want your kids to aspire to be like. So they're anti-heroes. Like no one will want their like Spawn. No one will want their kid to make a deal with the devil to have powers and go around killing people who to avenge their 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 murder. So that's he's not a superhero. Um, Same thing with Blade. He actually Blade started off as a villain in the comics, and then later on became like an anti-hero. Same thing with Black Panther. Actually, the very first appearance of Black Panther in Fantastic Four, he was actually a bad guy, but they transitioned him and made him a superhero, not an anti-hero. Black Panther is a superhero, the first black superhero. Claudia Costa says hola from Brazil. What's up, Claudia? Basher Crazy says STEM degrees, then business after that, past to lifetime, tax burden, lifestyles. So, Basher Crazy, I've actually addressed that in a complete video. Several videos, actually. I did one where I was talking with a friend about it, and I did a previous vertical live stream where I didn't have any audience participation, where I just gave my whole rant about what is and isn't a BS major. So, to summarize that really quick, everyone has their own subjective notion of BS degrees, and some people think anything that isn't a STEM degree is a BS major. I don't believe that, because everything that comes under STEM is not useful. Like stuff like general biology or chemistry, um, geophysics, all these sort of degrees come under STEM, but they're not useful outside of going to graduate school for those fields. To me, a major that isn't a BS degree is something you can come right out of undergrad from and start making good money. And the only fields that you can do that with is in engineering and IT. That's it. All those other science majors are useless. Like a science undergrad degree doesn't do anything but prepare you for being a research assistant. A research assistant is like not a career field. It's like something that you do en route to getting a real job later on. So, meanwhile, there's fields outside of STEM which can prepare you for a rewarding career, like such as in teaching, um, and some other things. So, but yeah, but I think we both can agree that things like communications, criminal justice, family studies, gender and queer studies, or heaven forbid now, media influencer degrees are all bullshit. So SDWEST says, do you like X-Men? Of course. Definitely love X-Men. Batshit crazy says government. Chadwick was an amazing actor. Yep. Batshit crazy says, we'll check it. Thanks. Petroleum hires many STEM folks, including chemistry. Oh yeah, no. So I'm not shitting on STEM degrees. I think STEM degrees are totally legit, and people who go into STEM fields tend to have higher IQs than the folks that go into like liberal arts degrees and humanities. What I'm saying is not all STEM degree is equal. Everything that comes under STEM is not lead to a rewarding career, because STEM, the first part of STEM is science, right? But there's no undergrad degree in any of the science fields that are useful without going on to grad school. Maybe physics, but even that I doubt. Like really, any bachelor's degree in any science field, you have to go on to graduate school to make use of it. Otherwise, the only thing you can do with it is either be a research assistant, right? Teach, or do something completely unrelated, like entry level management, which a 4-year degree in any field can prepare you for entry level management. So batshit crazy run labs with BS. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So because one I had was originally general biology, and then I switched to psychobiology, so psychology, but with a concentration in biology or neuroscience, right? So because I thought it was more useful than general biology, and I wanted to do psychology, but with a more scientific leaning than social science. But yeah, the biology folks can run labs with a BS degree because they're research assistants. Research assistants does not pay well. If you don't believe me, you can Google it up, or you can look it up at the occupational outlook handbook if that's still around. I think it is, but I think now they don't publish a hard copy. I think it's only online. They might still publish a hard copy, but go to occupational outlook handbook or Google salary for research assistants. They don't pay well. It might be like 20 something, 20 somewhere between 20 30K a year. But this was like 20 years ago, so maybe it's like maybe up to 40K a year, but and I doubt it's up to 40K a year. It's probably still around, at best, around 30K a year. It's not something you can live on for the average person. It's like a big, but yeah. What's up, son of Soweto? Glad you back. He says, hi, brother, from my other mother from across the great rivers. Don't know current topic. Sorry about that. No, you're good. So I didn't even announce really the current topic. Well, yes, I did, but I'm going to reiterate it since we have a bunch of people in the audience. So, yesterday my chat sort of got cut off because it had to reconnect. And once it reconnected, I couldn't no longer see the chat. So I cut it off. But yesterday my topic was talking about interracial relationships and why some people who are pro-black disdain interracial relationships. And so I wanted to go back into that today, but I also wanted to jump into something that Dennis Sperling, the attorney, talked about 3 days ago, which was something that some women have used against black men, which is to say, oh, that you hate your mother, or as the common thing they always say is, well, your mama black. So we're going to get into that because I since the name of this channel is Just A Contrarian, I have no problem getting into topics like that. Basha Crazy says the fundamental point is the kind of degrees that go into government jobs are trash. Well, I don't think a social media influencer job would be a government job. And actually, government jobs are very rewarding. So my alma mater, which, by the way, I just got my new Terp alumni magazine. So, guys, go Terps. So, so the because Maryland, University of Maryland College Park is right outside of DC, and I mean like right outside of DC. Like once you go up Route 1, it crosses right into DC. I think Northwest DC. We got a lot of government agencies that recruit on our campus, and I mean everybody. We get like CIA, DEA, FBI, every people from Congress, like everybody, like because of that, a lot of some of the fields offered on campus will cater to getting people into these government jobs. I mean, you can hate it or not, but government jobs are the military and the government and the federal government are the only places that offer job security nowadays. You can't find job security anywhere else now in almost any field other than the government and military. So it's something to consider. And also for minorities, particularly black people, these were the government was like the best place for them to work back in the day because they're the only places that were more likely to hire them. So, yeah. In any case, the BS majors are not the ones the government is looking for. Like, government is not looking for anyone with jobs in communications or criminal justice or a social media influencer or anything like that. They're looking for people in fields like STEM, and certain liberal arts degrees. So enough of that. So let's get into the conversation today. But first, let me make sure I addressed everyone's comments. There's criminal justice, education, etc., including law. So my issue why criminal justice degree is a bullshit degree is simple, and this is how I define bullshit degrees, which I think is better than how other people give their subjective feelings about what is a bullshit degree. My simple definition of a bullshit degree is that it's a degree in a field that you don't need to get into that very field, and criminal justice is one of them. You don't most of the jobs in criminal justice don't require a degree, and the ones that do require a degree, you can have a degree in anything to get into that job. So whether you're talking about law enforcement or being a or getting into law school or anything like that, they don't require a specific degree. Like for law school, you might do pre-legal studies, but you can do pre-legal studies in literally any with literally any major, which is why they did that. What was that movie with the cute blonde girl who went and ended up going to like Harvard Law School? Used to wear all pink. I forgot the name of that movie. It was kind of funny though. But I think her her degree was like um something like fashion or something like that. But she had like an amazing GPA and stuff like that, so she went on to Harvard. I can't remember the name of that movie. It had a sequel to it as well. But you can get into law school with any degree, and you can get into law enforcement with any degree. And most law enforcement doesn't require a degree. Some of them that do only require a 2-year degree. But yeah, Senator Soweto says, I came in when you were talking about IQs and etc. What do you think about race and IQ as well as the Flint effect? So I've talked about that actually in a very long previous video as well. Actually, in several videos, because things near and dear to my own interests, I will talk a lot about, and I've talked about IQ ad nauseum. Um, I oh, sorry if you hear stuff in the background, guys. I'm playing some little hip hop lo-fi for you guys. I thought it might make some interesting background music, but sometimes the commercials come on. So, um, in any case, I'll address this last comment, then I'm getting to the meat and bones of my topic for today. So, as far as what do I think about race and IQ? So they're very muddled topics because on one hand you have people who deny both of those phenomena, right? Some people deny that race exists, some people deny that IQ exists, or other people acknowledge that IQ exists but don't acknowledge that it does have a, a good is a good reflection of human intelligence. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm gonna keep it brief. I'm not gonna go into a whole spiel about it. If you want the whole spiel about race and IQ, Senator Soweto, please check out my previous video that I did on social constructs. I did actually 3 videos called social constructs, where I break down cultural constructs, social constructs, and my biggest 3 examples of those social constructs was IQ, gender, and IQ. And I'll talk about it meticulously. And I've done some conversations with my friend while we're, driving, talking about IQ and some others and stuff like that. So check out those videos if you want to hear me talk about it in way more detail than I'll give you this quick snippet here. But, for the nonce, uh, race and IQ are a thing. It's just like, so let's take it from a non-controversial point of view. So we know the different dog breeds are more intelligent than other dog breeds. Pit bulls are pretty stupid as far as dog breeds go. Some people say, well, they're not stupid, they're just loyal to a fault. Well, that's kind of a sign of them being stupid, which is why they're not used like German shepherds are, and like for the purposes of law enforcement and military. German shepherds are used for law enforcement and military because they're one of the smartest breeds out there. So just as there's different breeds of dogs that are more intelligent than other, of course there's, and this is salient because different breed, even though these are all different breeds of dog, they're all one species, or at most two species, but most dog breeds all fall under one species, right? And so just like all human races fall under one species of human beings that are currently, which is Homo sapien sapien. Yes, sapien sapien, because we're actually our current species is actually a subspecies, because of a bottleneck that happened in Africa like about 200,000 years ago. Anyway, um, just like there's different breeds of dog that all fall under one species, there's different races of human that fall under one species, and some of them are more intelligent than others because of different selective pressures when they're within their given environment. And we know from repeated IQ testing and stuff like that the different IQ scores of those groups. Now, these things change with education because there are some groups now that would have been ranked lower uh, like 80 years ago when they first started doing this testing en masse than what they are now, which shows a lack of those groups' um, educational resources. Um, so, for instance, when Eastern Europe, when Jewish folks from Eastern Europe first started coming into America, they tested really lowly on IQ scores because they didn't have access to education back then. But nowadays, once you adjust for that, once you adjust for education and all that sort of stuff, you still have a hierarchy, and you have Ashkenazi Jews at the highest rung of average IQ by group. Then you have East Asians. Then you have other folks that come in the middle. Western European folks are in the middle, and then towards the bottom are indigenous people, which is probably partly due to educational resources, lack thereof, and at the bottom, black people, and then even at the very very bottom, if they separate black Americans from black Africans are at the bottom. And even though this says a lot about the group differences, it doesn't say a lot about individual differences, because there's a difference between group differences and differences within the group. Differences within the group are always going to be larger than differences between groups, which means to say that you can't know anything about an individual person from either group simply by which group they're lumped in. So whereas the average East Asian may be by group might be considered more intelligent by IQ than someone coming from like the black diaspora, it doesn't say anything about those individuals. So individually, the black person could be actually more intelligent than the individual with the East Asian background. So within group differences will always be greater than between group differences. This is just a statistical phenomena that I'm not going to get into. And I'm going to start timing these people out. Got an abundance of trolls. And at this time of day, it kind of lets me know that these are probably minors. So I'm not gonna clown them. I'm just gonna time these people out. So anyway, that's my question. That's my answer, Son of Soweto, is that race and IQ are related because different groups had different selective pressures on them in which to further develop their cognitive ability. And IQ is a reflection of people's ability to do analytic reasoning, which is been more heavily um, done in education now, which is part of the Flynn effect. The Flynn effect showed that you had to renormalize IQ tests every generation because each generation did better on the IQ test than the previous generation. But that didn't mean that they were smarter than the previous generation. It meant that education was more concentrated on abstract analytical reasoning than previous generations' educational background. Okay. But it doesn't mean that everyone was dumber in previous generations. Some people think that's what the Flynn effect showed. It doesn't. The Flynn effect just shows that newer generations had schooling that reflected a higher dependence on abstract reasoning, right? But earlier generations didn't have that same influence in their education. And we're actually seeing the reverse Flynn effect within the last 30 years. Average IQ has gone down, particularly in America. So, as in the past, we had to renormalize the IQ test to reflect people were doing better on the test. Now we got to renormalize it to show that people are doing more poorly on the test since the 90s. KM123, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Crypto, Bigfoot falls into cryptozoology, and most alleged species in cryptozoology don't exist, like Bigfoot, Loch Ness, all that sort of stuff. It would be kind of irrelevant to ask what race is Bigfoot because that's even if that species existed, it wasn't human. Final question: do you think it is genetic? Yes, partly. What we know from behavioral genetics is that all human traits are partly heritable. All human traits, both so that means both physical and psychological traits are all partly inherited, which means yes, they're genetic. For instance, IQ is over 50% inheritable, and what we find out is it actually goes up as you age. So the older you get, it goes up to actually like 80% inheritability, which means you slowly become like your parents as you get older. So yeah, and like I said, all human traits are partly heritable, which is a finding we find from behavioral genetics. So that should answer your question. If it doesn't, again, please go to my previous videos called Social Constructs. I do 3 of them to break it down as much as I can without, ranting. It doesn't rant, but I think doing 3 videos on it, pretty much I try to cover the whole gambit. But yeah, so to the topic of du jour, right, is that I'm doing a sequel to yesterday's live stream where it got cut off at the end because I couldn't see the chat after it reconnected. Thanks, Son of Soweto. I appreciate it, buddy. Um, so the topic yesterday was interracial relationships and why people in the pro-black sector disapprove of it. And one of the things that, like I said, Dennis Sperling, I'm gonna keep giving him a shout out because I respect the guy. He's cool as shit. I've chatted with him on Facebook, and well, not chatted with him, but you know I've replied to him in his comment section of his posts, and he's responded before. And like I said, he may have even seen this channel once or twice. But or people who watch him may have also watched me. But in any case, he brought up the issue that is a hidden a, one of the hidden factors within the black community when dealing with interracial relationships and stuff like that, especially with the the trend of the passport bro movement, is that a lot of black women will then say, well, your mama black, or you must hate your mother, that's why you dating these other women. And he went on to say, well, actually, yeah, a lot of us do dislike our mothers or even hate them because of how we grew up. And I have no problem going into some of my background. I wasn't going to go into it yesterday, but I have no problem going into it today. Yeah, a lot of us do dislike our black mothers for a lot of reasons. Like, I don't have it as bad as some other people have, but I've seen people with much worse moms than I have. What's up for shizzle my nizzle? um, so for one, like some people grew up with moms who were junkies, who were prostitutes, who let their boyfriends abuse them, mothers who neglected them, abused them, mothers who emasculated them in public. I definitely had a share of that. Um, and some of them who've even called their sons the N word, like told them they weren't shit. And I've actually talked about this before when I talked about how I really can't stand my parents. So my father doesn't get off the hook either. But this is just about moms today, because we always talk shit about the black men and the fathers, but people are rare to address the issue with the black mother because she's seen as holy and sanctified within the black community, and we're not letting them get away with that because for since a lot of these black people since at least the 60s and 70s came from single mother households, they have a lot to do with why the black community is so broken. Son of Sawyer says, I see in American movies that African American mothers are violent, loud, and seen with other men, etc. Things that are taboo in our communities. I thought it was okay. Yeah, very much so. So, like, like I said, my situation isn't as drastic as others, but there's definitely been some issues in my past that has turned me off of black women. But I've dated black women up until grad school. My first girlfriend was a black girl, darker than me, and she was the sweetest person you could know. This is when I lived in Philly, so anyone from Philadelphia, shout out to Philly. My first girlfriend was from Philly when I moved there. Lived in West Philly, um, and you would think this would be someone my mom approved of, because I remember her telling my father a long time ago that she only wants me with black women who are brown skinned. She never said this directly to me, but she told this to my father. And he was laughing when he told me about it, because this is all when he was giving me the talk when I was 13. First of all, when I was 13, I was like, it's a little bit too late for you to be giving me the talk. Like, you should have told me this stuff like around 10, 11. But what's up, Olympia? I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking. So, um, but no, she was rude to this girl. Partly because, and this is my fault, is that in a time before the internet, guys, and cell phones. Well, there were cell phones, but not cell phones that are accessible to children and teens like they are today. We had what's called long distance calling. So when I moved back to Baltimore, I stayed in touch with her through long distance calls. And also, art that's been lost, we used to write letters to each other. We used to actually write love letters back and forth to each other, like every week. And I used to actually, on the weekends, take the Greyhound back to Philly. Folks didn't even know I used to go to Philly like almost every weekend to hang out with my girlfriend at the time, my first love. And Her mother adored me. Um, but yeah, my mother didn't was rude to her. Like, because one time I actually brought her here to Baltimore to hang out with me. My mother was just rude to her. But at the time, she was just mean anyway. So that's another thing we're gonna get into. I'm not bald; it's just cut close, guys. Because someone was asking what's my hairline. I have a hairline. It's my hair's cut close. I like it cut close. No muss, no fuss, right? That's how I keep it. I'm not. Plus, I think it looks more manly to keep it cut close than the way some of these younger folks do, keeping braids and twisting their hair. Like, no, no diss to anyone who has twists or braids or locks, but it just doesn't look as manly to me. And from a distance, I don't want to be confused with anyone other than a man. So, um, but yeah, so like I said, she was rude to this girl. Like I said, you would think she would approve of her because she was a chocolate girl. Like she was darker than me. She was so sweet. Um, she lived like on the outskirts of Philly, like in the Overbrook area where Will Smith is from, the Fresh Prince. Like she told me, like when I first came to her neighborhood, she was like, "Yeah, this like right past." She was telling me right past her block is like the area where Will Smith grew up. I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." It's not in this, it's a nice area. He didn't grow up in the hood. Like it was still the inner city, but it was a nicer part. Where I grew up, I mean, where I was living was the hood. Like where I grew up, like when I walked to school, it was I could see so many crack vials. It was insane. I joked and said that I could line up all the crack vials from school to home in case I ever got lost to find my way back home. So, but yeah, she was just like, as a kid, as a little kid, she was nicer to me. But even then, there were things that went on. Like if she and my stepfather got into a fight, she expected me to jump into it and like back her on stuff. Like she was like Thor. Like I think they had a fight at one point, and he drove away, and she was like throw a rock at him. I'm like, I'm not throwing a rock at him. That's like my father, like my stepfather. But I'm not. He's a parent. Like he's an adult. I'm not gonna throw a rock at his car. She was like, here, give me that, and she threw a rock at the car. Or she would embarrass me. Like I went to a convenience store once and got something, and then she wanted to take it back, and they wouldn't allow her. And she started fussing and cussing at everyone in the store. And they was like, "Man, you gotta get out. We're gonna call the cops." And she's just throwing f bombs and this and that. And I'm like, oh, God. Or I remember one day at the park, I was there with my little sister who was a still like an infant at the time. She told me to watch my little sister when she went to go do something. I don't know what she went to go do, but we're just at the playground, and I met this little girl my age, and so we're just sitting there talking while my little sister played on the playground. And I was watching my sister the whole time, but she came back and said, "Why weren't you watching your sister?" and slapped the taste out of my mouth while the little girl was sitting there watching. I just felt so embarrassed. Like I literally didn't do anything wrong. Like I was watching my sister the whole time, but the fact that I was sitting there talking to this little girl, she just got irate and just slapped the crap out of me for no reason. Um, so those were little things that aren't a big deal as a kid, but as a teenager, it got much worse. So she and my stepfather, you know, separated, had a falling out, and all this sort of stuff. And I think the stress of that made her like just an unhappy person, and she took it out on everyone. Like the entire family was scared of her at one point. Like people used to walk on pins and needles to not upset her because she was just in a constant state of irritants. Um, it was scary. Like we just tried to avoid her. Like I would have cousins come over and they'd be like, they was like, Amon, I'm not trying to be mean, but your mom is a bitch. Like just random folks would say that, and like even my grandmother and people that we lived with in the household, they tried to avoid her because they didn't want to deal with her attitude. Like I seriously thought she had psychiatric issues at the time, which I'm pretty sure she did. Like I said, I understood that she and my stepfather weren't working out, but that's no reason to unleash hell on everyone else in the household. Like everyone was scared to talk to her or be around her because she was just in a constant fit of rage. Um, and I've addressed the fact that I'm an atheist, but guess what, guys? When I was in the ninth grade, I actually formed a Bible study group at school with a couple of friends. We actually called it the Power Source, which I thought was clever. That wasn't the name wasn't my idea though, but I liked it. It was called the Power Source, and I remember telling her a week prior to going to this after school program that I was going to do, which wasn't shouldn't have been a big issue because I had done stuff after school all the time. But we were also had a home in Bear, Delaware, but we would commute back and forth some days back to Bear, Delaware from Baltimore. So maybe that was the issue. She never told me, but I did let her know several days prior that I was going to be after school. And I remember after coming back from this Bible study group that me and my friends formed, she she cussed me out and tried to, attack me for doing it. And I'm like 14, maybe almost 15 at the time. And I'm like, nah, you're not putting your hands on me. That's another thing. Like when black teenage males get about 14 to 15, you can't beat them anymore. A 15-year-old male is stronger than the average adult female, which is when they learn that they can't no longer put any hands on you. So then they'll start trying to claim that you're violent because you won't let them beat beat them anymore. But in any case, she she cussed me out, was trying to put her hands on me. I was like, get your hands off me. So then she tried to throw me out the house. And I'm like, this ain't your house. This is grandma's house. You're not throwing me out. And, this was going on outside. And I just so happened to have friends from school walking by. So I was embarrassed because they seeing me in this little this engagement with my mother. And it's like she was just a constant source of frustration. So as soon as my father offered, for me to live with him again, I took it because the first time I didn't want to. I wanted to stay with her when I was 13. And so that's why I ended up moving to Philly to be with her and my stepfather. But he wanted me to actually live with him in Silver Spring, Maryland, in the DC suburbs, and which would have been a much better place to live. And I refused at the time because I thought I should be closer to my mom, like most mama's boys at the time, right? But by the time I was 16, I was like, oh, hell no, let me get the hell away from her. And I finished my last year of school in the DC area because she was saying that we could no longer commute from Delaware to Baltimore. For me to keep going to school in Baltimore, that I had to go to Delaware or live with my father. So I'm just saying I'm living with my father. I'm not staying with her anymore. Um, so it, that was that, but it didn't stop there. So things were happening, and so at one point, after I started my career in the army, I wanted to go back to college, and both of my parents didn't approve of me going to college. Like, this is another problem. This is how dysfunctional the black community is. You're telling the black kid, don't go to college. You don't need to go to college. And it's like, you're too old to go to college now. You're not Joe College anymore. You need to get a job. And I'm like, the fuck? Like, I already started college in community college. Why shouldn't I go? Because I was approved to go to University of Maryland. Like, I had some other safety schools. Like, there was a evening and weekend school associated with the University of Maryland, which is now called UMGC, University of Maryland Global Campus. But back then it was called UMUC, University of Maryland University College, which is an offshoot of the main flagship campus in Maryland. So I was going to go there and keep my job with the cable company I had at the time while being in the Army. But it's like, well, you don't need to be going to college, and wouldn't help me, didn't even help me get to the campus. I actually had to call up one of my cousin's uncles to bring me to college. They actually were telling people I don't need to be going. they told people I would fail out of college. My father lied and told them that 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 I failed community college. How the hell am I transferring if I failed out of community college? Like both of them were assholes and still are, but wouldn't support me. But here's the kicker. So once I graduated from undergrad, then she wanted me to talk my sister into going to college, who dropped out of high school, right? And didn't want to finish school. And they was like, well, you need to talk her into going to college so we can pay for it. Didn't pay for me, didn't offer, told me I didn't even need to go to college. But once I graduated, it was like, oh, well, you need to talk your sister into going to college. I actually did, like a good son. She told me she wasn't interested, which is why she dropped out of high school in the first place. I was like, I understand, but they told me to ask you, talk with you, so I'm doing it. She was like, all right, but I'm not going. I'm like, all right. So I told them. They was like, well, that's not good enough. You need to talk to her again. I'm like, no, no, no. We've already went through this. Besides the very audacity to tell me to tell someone they need that they have to go to college so that you can pay for it when you wouldn't do it for me. And I'm missing one other nugget of that was that my grandmother's church was offering scholarships. And the only thing my mother had to do was come to the church to accept the scholarship in my name because I couldn't accept it. The parent had to accept it. She refused to do so. Of course, I didn't notice until after I finished college. My grandmother told me, and I'm like, wow, wow. So, and you know, despite all this, yes, to answer Sana Sowedo's question, am I married to an Asian woman now? Yes, I am. My mother actually met her. Like I flew her over to the Philippines to meet her when I was still staying in the Philippines, and she met my wife and her mother and family, and she liked my wife. So I thought they were getting along and all this sort of stuff, and then I hear something from my grandmother again. You know how black grandmothers are like the source of all like information in, in the black family. They will tell it all. Black grandmothers are the best because they tell it all. So she she told me something my mother had said to her, something about, oh, I guess if Amon has children with her, he's gonna have a bunch of ching chong children. Wow. I was like, really? It is like 2018, 2019. You're still saying ching chong children, as opposed to what your grandchildren from your daughter who's a junkie. Yeah, I didn't mention that, did I? The same one she wanted to go to college that she was going to pay for, despite her not qualifying for college, despite her dropping out of high school, who's also a junkie, has a bunch of has two children by a guy who's a was a drug dealer and a junkie and was in federal prison for like X amount of years. She completely supports her in every way, and my sister has lived off her ever since high school. She even buys her luxury cars like Lexus, whatever. Like that's her favorite brand, Lexus. So subsidizes that for her. But me, oh no. So yeah. So when you mention, oh, you must hate your mother, yeah, some of us actually do. We might still love them, but we can also hate them as well because love and hate aren't opposites. Like Dennis Berlin mentioned, that the opposite of love is indifference. So I'm gonna get back to these comments. uh, Anna Wolf says, I agree. My mom got into drugs and stuff, but sometimes people do hate their parents, but you can just jump to conclusions because you don't know how their life was with their mom or parent. True, but being that I know my grandmother, I know that my grandmother wasn't that way. My grandmother doesn't even cuss, Anna. She doesn't cuss. She's not violent. She doesn't spank her children. Like my grandfather who died before when I was a baby, so I never got to meet him. He was the violent one. He actually died of alcoholism. Um, but my grandmother doesn't even cuss. Like she has to get really angry just to say shit. Just literally. So she's not violent, and she doesn't cuss. So that's completely opposite of my mother's behavior and personality. So whatever she went through is in her childhood was nothing, does not equate to how she acts in her adulthood, because my uncle, who's her brother, even said that she was kind of spoiled and sheltered as a child. So I know that there wasn't any neglect or abuse going on in her childhood that would make her act that way. It's more than likely stemming from psychiatric issues, because as my mother's own former boyfriend, who died years ago, whom I fondly liked, um, he said, he believes 90% of the black community has mental health issues, and I, as someone now with a background in psychology, I can agree with that. Um, Checking the comments, guys. John's channel says, I wish we could all move past the color of our skin. I don't think we have to move past it. I think we should just accept it. Fascism, I know, there's too many immature people to move past pettiness. Right, and it's not something to move past. I think we should just accept differences, not try to ignore them. I don't think to get along with each other we have to ignore differences. I think we should accept differences. That's a difference. Sonic Ring says, wow, that is embarrassing. Yeah, truly. Fascism, I know, says, don't worry about it, man. We all go through bullcrap. 100, yeah. Son of Soweto says, for some reason, you look like the kind of person that married an Asian. Yeah, you guys are going to be seeing her very soon. She promised to do something special for me this week to celebrate reaching 1,000 subscribers. Um, but yeah, I don't know if I have a look for it, but hey, I'll Wesley Snipe it up. Straight Wesley Snipes over here. Blade, whatever. TY Game says, did you go live in the Philippines for work? Oh, go live in the Philippines for work. So I didn't go there for work, but I work remotely. So, well, my job allowed me to work remotely so I could live there as much as I wanted. My problem was coming back here because I didn't have to. And they even set me up with my own office to run from there, where I would actually have a, a Filipino personnel. Since my background is in my so my livelihood is in lead generation, direct marketing, which my father hates, by the way. He doesn't think it's real. But for people who don't think lead generation or direct marketing is a legit um, a legit career field, just know that lead generation is a $1 billion industry, and every year they do LeadsCon in Vegas, so they have their own convention. It's a $1 billion industry, and the same people who probably hate lead generation and direct marketing were probably the same people who hated uh, advertising back in like the 50s and 60s. If you ever seen Mad Men, which I've just started getting into, so I think the way people treated people who got into the advertising field back in like 60s or so years ago is the way they treat lead generation and direct marketing today. Son of Soweto says, I'm sorry that your parents didn't support you. Did you feel in love? Not in love. I just didn't. I just thought they were shitty parents. And the thing was, I didn't realize that I was actually correct until I went into therapy. For one, they definitely pointed out the flaws with my father, but they're going to do that. Well, female therapists are definitely going to highlight the flaws of the male parent, but a lot of them didn't tackle the female parent as much, and she has just as many issues as he does. What did I say? The opposite of love was indifference. Indifference is because you can love and hate someone on different levels, but indifference just means you don't care. So as long as you guys live in truth, God bless you. Thank you. TY Games says, why the Philippines out of all options? Because I had someone I wanted to meet there who became my wife. That's why. I mean, probably could have been other places I went, but we already started dating prior to me going there. Plus, the actual, and even before she and I met, I was going to go there because I had an ex-girlfriend before I met her whom I had planned on going seeing. Things went south, but a year later, well, 6 months later, I said, well, screw her. I'm still going to the Philippines regardless of whether she's there or not. I said, I'll try to see her, but if I don't see her, fine, I'll meet someone else. But in the interim, I actually ended up meeting the lady who became my wife and met her there. And uh, that's what happened. 365 guy says, yo, so you're a passport, bro? Yes, I am. Very definitively so. I've spoken about it in several videos if you want to check those out. Keep my passport in this. I keep it in the plastic, keep it protected. Also use this little passport wallet. I chose black instead of blue just because with it in black, it looks more like a wallet, which means people aren't going to automatically know it's a document. But, you know, I keep in this little black passport wallet here. So, yep, definitely passport, bro. Been in several countries, plan on doing some more this year. I slowed down during the pandemic, of course, like most people did. What are challenges of interracial relationships in the USA and Philippines? Um, oh, you know, I mean, there's the common problems in any relationships, things dealing with like finances, um, you know, male female issues. But as far as interracial, I mean, there's the whole thing of going between countries. There might be cultural differences. For the most part, I enjoy most of the cultural differences that we have because, like I said, she doesn't come from a broken community like most Black Americans do. Most Black Americans come from a fractured community, which is why a lot of Black men are leaving the Black community because we don't think it's worth fixing, which is where we disagree with a lot of these pro-Black people. They expect successful Black men to fix a broken community. We're not doing that. A lot of upwardly mobile Black men saying it's not our responsibility to fix a community where it's run mostly by Black females who disrespect them. It's not worth the juice is not worth the squeeze. So a lot of us has chosen the whole save yourself Black men or SYSBM movement and saying we're just getting out of the community and we're going to date out, or we're going to travel and move and either move abroad or just find women abroad, bring them back here, or some will stay out there and live amongst them. But a lot of us don't think the Black community is worth saving, and that's where we disagree with the pro-Black crowd. Top G material, that is. Top TY Gamer says, do you prefer the lifestyle of the US more or the Philippines? Philippines, without a doubt. Philippines is great. First of all, a lot of people who expatriate love the Philippines because it's so much, the cost of living is so much cheaper there, like so much cheaper. Like I've bought a house out there, well, through my wife, because foreigners can't buy houses. We can buy condos, but we can't buy property, but you can buy condos. So we have a house out there, and you know, in the U.S., I really couldn't afford a house. Maybe with my VA loan, I guess, but I'm not. I'm not buying a house and being in debt in the U.S. unless it was an investment property. But VA loans aren't supposed to be used for investment properties. They're supposed to be used for your primary, you know, your primary homes. Although I've seen some veterans finagle that. All right. RSPS Flub says, how the F you leave the black community if you black, bro? Because black community and black people are not the same thing. The black community has become a gynocracy led by black women. Some of them even say quite vocally that they don't need black men. It's just they consider the black community just black women and their children. And this is the stuff that Kevin Samuels pointed out before he died, which is why black women hate him, because he pointed out uncomfortable things that they try to not have account for. So I'm going to put show so that people can see this comment. Laylee says, geez. Senator Will says, there are lots of African Americans here marrying our ladies and guys. Yeah, so there's a lot of expats coming to Africa, like Ghana, Nigeria, places like that. For me, I'm not moving out there because I think the African Union should do a better job of catering to black Americans. Like, if they really want black Americans to come, they should make it a better reason to do so. Like, you had, some couple moved to Ghana and they burned down their homes. Allegedly, it was because they were homosexual. I'm not sure. But in any case, that's not how you... If you're trying to bring black American investment to the continent, they should be treated better. And if Africans really wanted black Americans to come back to the motherland, then they would do like Israel do and have a law of return. We should be offered dual citizenship by birth to any place within the African Union, and they don't do that. Have I ever experienced prejudice in my wife's family or country? Not by my wife's family. They adore me. And her uncles even vetted me as men should do, because her father passed away a year before we got together. So when I came to see her, her uncles actually vetted me, and they liked me. For one, they liked that I didn't drink. Because they all gave me some cheap Philippine beers. And I told them I didn't really drink, so I was actually nervous that they were gonna dislike me because I didn't drink. I later found out that they actually respected me more because I didn't drink. I still accepted the beer from them, but I didn't drink, since I haven't drank alcohol since college. But they like me. I even told them, when I come back, I'm gonna do something for them, like taking them to like a gun range. Or maybe do a thing called a boodle fight. A boodle fight is actually a big get together to eat, and everyone traditionally eats from there. Picks up the food by hand, and all the food is displayed in this across a long table on banana leaves. Very cool. But I said, we can do both of those things. One, I'm gonna do the boodle fight for the whole family, and then for just the men, we're all gonna go to the gun range and fire off some rounds, have some fun. Laylee, I didn't say it's only the women, so I don't know which part of you caught this, but I said both of my parents are fucked up. But I was saying the problem is no one likes to address the black mom part of the problem. That was something that Dennis Sperling in a podcast 3 days ago addressed, because he had got comments in his Facebook, criticizing him, saying you guys only don't like dating. Well, you guys only date interracial because you hate your mom or stuff like that. And he was saying, the elephant in the room is that a lot of black men do actually hate their mothers. Here's the reasons why. So I'm kind of piggybacking on what he discussed those 3 days ago. But yeah, I'm not only saying it's only the women. I'm just saying in general, the black community is fucked up, and it's because a lot of these guys grew up in these single mother households. And yeah, you can say, well, what about the guys that these absentee fathers? Well, here's the skinny on that. The women chose those Pookie and Ray Rays. And here's another thing. over 51% of black men are single and childless. So the women who are having children with the same pool of losers, Pookies and Ray Rays, and complaining about those very men because either they don't date the guys who they think are squares, or those men aren't choosing them. So make better choices, right? We hold men an account for all the mistakes they make all the time, but women don't want to be held account for their behavior, and it doesn't work that way. There's no dowry in the Philippines. Well, actually, no, no. Let me let me fix that. So, in some traditional cultures within the Philippines, there is a dowry. There is like a sort of a dowry, but most modern day Philippine relationships, there's no such thing as a bride price. I didn't pay any price or anything like that. That's in a very traditional, maybe the tribal parts of the Philippines, because the Philippines is actually like over 2,000 something islands, like almost 3,000 islands. Half of them are uninhabited though, but of the ones that are inhabited, like you know, the biggest island in the Philippines, Luzon, is where the bulk of people live, and then the islands that make up the Visayas, and then the islands that make up Mindanao in the south, which is mostly a Muslim region of the Philippines. Um, for the most part, people don't pay a dowry anymore in in uh, in Philippine marriages. That's something that's quite outdated. And Sami says Israel occupation. Did you hear the Israeli American when he stole a Palestinian house? Of I don't steal it, someone else gonna steal it. Do you want to steal someone else's house? I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. We're not talking about Israeli occupation. And most people, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm pro-Israel. So if you come in here with that pro-Palestinian shit, I don't care. I know, so people who know the history of the Middle East aren't going to be backing Palestine. Besides that, Jewish people have been the earliest supporters of the civil rights movement from from the time of the NAACP. There were Jewish people involved. Um, and there's a lot of anti-Semitic fervor within the black community, which is another reason I don't support the black community. A lot of us, like I said, a lot of black men said fuck the black community, and I'm one of them. Fucking. I've never had issues with Jewish people. They've always been the most polite to me. When I grew up in Baltimore, I grew up in a Jewish area called Park Heights. So people from Baltimore know. So you got two areas of Park Heights. You have the Park Heights, that's the hood. Then you have Park Heights, which was like the Orthodox Jewish community, or the Hasidic Jews. The folks that wear the fur coats and the fedoras and have the beards. And I remember as a little kid always riding my big wheel down the street. I used to see some guy staring out his house all the time, and me and my best friend, we used to think he was scary. Then one day I met this little white girl, and we just started, chopping it up, talking, and she and I became friendly. And then she invited me to her house, and so I was like, cool. And then it was the very same house where the scary guy was, and they invited me in. They were so nice. They offered me all these like treats and snacks, asked me how it was and all this sort of stuff. And I was a little Muslim kid when I was at that age. I was Muslim, which is why my real name is Aman. Um, Very nice. And, my mother was mad that I went to the person's house, which I understand because, I shouldn't be going to a stranger's house without her permission. But I think she also disliked the fact that I, befriended some Jewish kid. But I've never had a problem with them. Like, in my teenage years, didn't have a problem with them. Not in my adult years. In college, I was friends with them. Like, because I once lived in a frat house, in a white frat house, which was fun. That's a whole topic for another day. But yeah, I've never shared any of those anti-Semitic feelings that other people in the black community do. Like one of my friends, I think a lot of black people are anti-Semitic just because they basically just hate the fact that they're successful. And I'm going to be perfectly frank about that. Laylee says Canadian blacks don't talk like that. Certain communities, I don't. I, I had a friend who was from Canada, a black guy, cool guy, but I don't know much about the Canadian black community to talk about it other than Drizzy Drake. um, Anjit says, "You remember me?" Of course I do, Anjit. Senator Sawyer says, "Could it be that your experiences of African American families is localized and other places have better behaved Black Americans?" No, this is a problem amongst the whole Black community. This is what I'm saying. This is a phenomena within Black America. The the community is broken. A lot of Black men who have money and resources are leaving the Black community, choosing women from other races to marry and have children with, and choose to live outside of Black communities. Then there's some of us who are even traveling to, and setting up homes or living abroad. Then there's going to be many of us that still stay here. Then there's also going to be the Pookies and Ray Rays that don't have a problem with it. And then there's going to be the pro blackity people, a lot of them who make a living off of being activists, who don't offer any solutions but just want to shame Black men into basically staying where they are, because most of the people who support these pro Black people are Black women, like Umar Johnson's dumbass. Roadrunner says 2023 I lived in Boho. Okay, that's what's up. I have a John Fan Jeet Kune Do instructor who lives in Boho. I told him that when I come back to the Philippines, I wanted to train with him. Hopefully, I can get my Jeet Kune Do certification under him over there. Where he lives, the former martial arts champion Mike Stone also lives with him, lives close to him in Boho as well. Because I had to give up comfort to experience a bit of freedom. Yep. Silent Ring says, "You're right, I'm from East Baltimore, but I did have Jewish friends in Florida, Boca Raton." Okay, I didn't know you were from East Baltimore, Sonic. You never told me that before. I mean, in the previous chats, I didn't know you were from the hometown. Son of Soweto says, "I'm neither pro-Israeli or Palestinian. I'm pro-humanity. I hope and pray that they can all live together someday." I believe so too, Son of Soweto. And I favor the two-state solution. However, I think that there has to be a buffer between those two places, because I don't think that I don't think they can share a border without there being more conflict. I think there needs to be a two-state solution, but there needs to be a buffer between their two states in the future. Andrew says, "I'm not pro-Palestinian, but I'm pro-PUBG, though. I'm not sure what PUBG stands for." But anyway, guys, so back to the subject. So yeah, the elephant in the room for why some Black men aren't choosing Black women is, yes, because of their mother. Like, obviously, if someone causes you a lot of distress, someone you dislike, someone you found abusive, someone who emasculated you as a young male, you're not going to want to date someone who reminds you of that person, whether physically or psychologically. You're not going to want to date someone who reminds you of that. Now, they might still sleep with those sort of women. They might still sleep with women who act like their mother, who look like their mother, but they don't want to put down roots. They don't want to marry them. They don't want to be there in a committed relationship with them. But yeah, they'll still sleep with them because they're men and they're still driven by their sexual urges. But just because men might be still driven by their sexual urges don't mean they still actually want to be in relationships with these women. PUBG is a video game. Okay, you probably haven't heard in my other streams, Angie, because people always bring up video games, but I'm not a gamer, so I don't know anything. My last gaming system that I own, not played, I've played other systems, but the last one that I actually owned was classic Nintendo, and we know that died out in '91. That was the last video game system I owned. I played stuff since then, but I'm not up on video games. TY Gamer, so was it a bad experience dealing with black females while you were still in school? No, because I think I feel sorry for younger folks, if especially if you're one of those younger folks who grew up with women today. They're not the same in the '90s. Black girls in the '90s were cool. Like think of Aaliyah, people like that. Like they were so much chill. Like they weren't out twerking, like showing all their ass cheeks. Like they would wear tight stuff or whatever. Um, but they they weren't showing their ass all the time. They weren't telling men you have to cash at me to date me and all that sort of stuff. Like like there was some like pay for play going on even when I was a kid. Like I remember guys would sometimes buy girls a pair of Reeboks or Fila sneakers to get some play. But by and large, that was the exception that proved the rule. Like most of them genuinely liked us and we liked them. Uh, and like I said, most of my relation and almost all of my relationships up until college were with black women. And I actually turned down women of other races to be with these other black girls many a time. So it wasn't really a bad experience. Like I said, my first girlfriend was a chocolate girl who was darker than me. She was sweet, but my mom disliked her just for the fact I think that I gave her affection. Um, by the way, I know someone asked me several days ago to consider getting a moderator. Now that I'm at 1,000 subs and we grow, I might do that. But for the most part, I'll let my wife moderate when she's available to do so. Not she can't do that right now, but hold up, let me check something here. Yeah, so she's not moderating right now, so I'm just doing it on my own. But yeah, I haven't really had bad experiences with black women while I was in school. That didn't happen until college. And another point that Dennis Sperling brought up is that a lot of these black guys like me pretty much dated nothing but black women until they went to college and saw all the different varieties of women out there who some of them they found more attractive than black women. And that was partly the case with me, but not really, because I've always been interested in women of all races since I was a kid. Like I said, the Jewish girl I met living in Park Heights, Baltimore, as a little kid, and then moving to Chicago when I was 7 years old. Um, there was white girls that I was interested in, and they liked me too. um, then again, in middle school and high school, the same thing. And then when I moved to the DC suburbs, if people didn't catch that early in the stream, like my last year of high school, I moved into the DC suburbs, live with my biological father because I no longer wanted to live with my mother. And the Montgomery County was the most culturally diverse area in Maryland at the time. Probably still is, or one of the most diverse. Where within my neighborhood itself, you might meet people who speak 20 different languages. Like my best friend at the time, or one of my best friends was East Indian. He introduced, and just being around him introduced me to Indian girls, some who thought I was attractive. There was a black girl whom I dated who had a friend who was Vietnamese, and she actually wanted me and was mad that I chose the black girl over her to date. Then there was like other Asian girls, and like my neighborhood, Silver Spring, Maryland, was full of Latina women. They were, man, I mean, because I knew Silver Spring had a heavy Latino community, but these girls were beautiful, and they like brothers, still do, you know. So it's not, but but in all seriousness, yeah, like my like in my neighborhood, we have like it's most. most of the Latinos who live in Maryland are like Central American, like Salvadoran, stuff like that. But like our community had like basically Latinos from everywhere. Like one of my closest friends, um, he and his sisters were Panamanian. One of my other friends was Dominican. Some other guys, they were Mexican. This other girl whom I had a crush on, she was Puerto Rican. This one dude, I used to come over his house sometimes and just chop it up with him, hang out. And this dude told me straight up, he was like, "Yo, you can date my sisters if you want. I don't even care." He said, "I'll let you." He's, "I'd rather you date." "I'd rather you date my sisters than some of these little dumbass Spanish kids up the block." I'm like, "Word?" I'm like, "All right." I wasn't even attracted to his sisters like that, to be honest. But the fact that he was like, "Yo, I don't mind you dating my," because he was older than me, so I kind of looked up to him. So he was like, "I don't care if you date my sisters." Like he said, "That'd be cool with me." He said, "I'd rather you date them than some of these other Spanish kids in the neighborhood." So I always had that multi ethnic um, background with relationships, but I didn't really explore it until after I left college, left undergrad. But for a lot of black people who only lived in predominantly black neighborhoods, they don't find that until they leave, until they go to college. Especially these athletes, a lot of these guys who wouldn't otherwise qualify to go to college get there through academic scholarships, and they quickly find out that it's the white girls, the the white girls who give them the most support when they're these struggling student athletes. Because most of the black girls, they like them, but they don't cater to these dudes like the white girls did. So, and when people make fun of, oh well, when it comes to the draft day, why all these guys with white women, is because these were the girls who were supporting them when they were in college struggling as a student athlete. Like they get a scholarship, but they don't get some sort of stipend and allowance, most of them, while they're in college. And when I was back in college, they couldn't even make a it was illegal for them to have, not illegal, but it was against NCAA rules for them to accept any sort of money outside of their scholarship. So these kids were these guys were struggling. But these white girls catered to them. Not only were they sleeping with them, but they were buying these guys food, taking them out. So of course, if these are the girls that's catering to you and stuff like that, those are going to be the women you choose. Those are going to be the women around you during draft day. So, Son of Soweto says, in Africa, we are in some way obligated to marry within our communities. I mean, that was the way it was here, but it's not so much that anymore. You can't, and they're trying. That's what pro-black people are trying to do here in America, but it's just not working. Upwardly mobile black men have too many options to be stuck within their own communities marrying women. Besides that, in Africa, your women don't disrespect you like they do here in America. I've met African women. A lot of them like black American guys. I've even had African friends saying, "Man," he's like, he was like, "Yo, African parents would love you to date their daughters." He was telling that to me and a couple of my black friends. He was like, "Man," he said, "African parents would love you guys to date their daughters." Because, like I said, the way we're raised to pander to black females, um, which is why females of all races like us, because we're tended to be seen as more kinder and gentler to women than men of other groups. I even heard that coming from Vietnamese women. Like during the Vietnam War, um, a lot of Vietnamese girls like black men because they were told by their mothers and grandmothers that during the Vietnam War it was the black GIs who treated them better than the white GIs. So we're considered very desirable among across the world, and black women don't like that. TY Gamer says, so you're saying like 20-year-old black girls right now got a bad culture, but what about 20-year-old girls from other cultures? Yeah, so Western women in general are problematic, but black women, yes. Like, where else? Who? whom else do you see twerking and doing this other stuff? I mentioned this in the live stream yesterday. Like they just twerk all the time. Like when they opened the Martin Luther King Memorial in the National Mall in downtown DC several years ago, there was black women from the Black Lives Matter Foundation out there twerking, saying that they were showing homage to Martin Luther King and to the civil rights movement, twerking in front of the memorial. Then a bunch of these other dumb bitches, sorry for my blunt language, but a bunch of these other dumb bitches went to Africa where their historical slave port is. I can't remember which country. I think it's either in Ghana or Sierra Leone, one of those two countries. There's a historical site where it's like one of the largest slave ports where they shipped off the African slaves across across the Atlantic to North America and the Caribbean. These bitches were twerking at the slave port, saying they were showing honor to the ancestors and twerking against the slave traders and stuff. And then later at police protests, guess what they were doing? Twerking. What are they always doing online? Twerking. Or just being ghetto. Like, who are their favorite rappers now? People like Cardi B and Sexy Red, Nicki Minaj and Megan Thee Stallion, and all these other little stupid whores. Like, it's not hip hop, it's strip hop. Yes, the culture is trash, right? Black American culture right now is trash. This is what a lot of educated black men with resources are getting away from in droves. So I don't know why they hit this one, send us away though, but let me show this. So you said, but for us, marrying white people is a fairly recent thing. Our experience with white people has been violent until 1994, so it's complicated. Yeah, I understand that. I'll say this: a lot of my African friends I met in college, man, some of them love some white women. I remember, I remember when we would go out partying on the weekends, like a few of these guys, like they wasn't even looking at black women or African women. Like they was hitting to every snow bunny they could find. Like every snow bunny, he was like, "What's up?" I'm like, "Damn, son." Angie says, I don't really keep up with these politically correct stuff. I'm not politically correct, Angie, as you can tell. Um, he said, but I think people are getting more sensitive with time. This might offend some people. Yeah. And this is why, my political leanings have changed over time, because where I used to be comfortably politically left and progressive, I'm no longer so, because being progressive or on the left has meant basically just glorifying victimhood and identity politics, and I don't identify with that, especially when it means no longer having free speech, because it can't be speech that it can't be speech that offends certain groups, or um, that disagrees with people. So you have people who are so sensitive nowadays on the left, especially like people within the LGBTQ movement, and certain other folks who now will say that merely disagreeing with them is violence. Like saying to verbally disagree with someone is violence. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. So I just couldn't rock with the progressive movement anymore. I've also done videos on that if you're curious. I'll literally have a video say why I'm no longer progressive. Senator Wales says I can moderate. I'll take it into consideration. You and someone else have offered. We'll see. Like I just don't have the audience just isn't big enough that I need like other moderators. Like if the average live stream is only like 10 people, plus or minus 5, it's not worth having moderators yet. When once we're talking about triple digits, then I would need a moderator. Once these see Once I start doing super chats and I start doing like super digit numbers, I mean triple digit numbers, like then we'll look into moderation. But when you're looking at like an average of 10 people in the audience, it doesn't bear it um, right now. All right, Christopher is on timeout. Chloe says, "Hey, I'm new here. What's up, Chloe?" Angie says, "I think people need to focus more on themselves first and then actually become influential enough to create change instead of being one of the masses following the agenda." Exactly, Angie. That's the whole purpose of why a lot of black men are leaving the black community, because there's like, I'm not fixing something that's broken, and not only is the community broken, but the people who broke it don't really want you to fix it. They just want you to stay there to be there with them, and that's that's just not happening. It's not fair. I'm not going to stifle my individual ambitions to be within a toxic community. Chloe says, "I'm Latina from Puerto Rico." What's up? We got Barriqua in the house. DJ Georgie Porgy says, "I don't know what WEPA means. I hope that's not bad." Cirque Bandera says, "What is your dream?" I don't know what that dream as far as what. You mean my personal ambitions and stuff like that? That's probably a topic for another day. Ty Gamer says, What about like African party culture? Don't they grind and air hump and anyone and everyone?" First of all, I can't speak on behalf of African culture. One, because African continent is 50 different countries, 50 different countries with different cultures, different languages, and different tribes. Even within nations, there might be several different tribes because these countries were cut up by European colonies back in the 1800s. And so the countries don't actually reflect the different ethnic groups. Like Nigeria is like maybe like at least 5 or 6 different tribal groups like Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, and some others, and they all have differences within and the different cultural values and things like that. So I can't speak about Africa as in mass as one as like as homogenous, because Africa is not homogenous. It's quite culturally diverse. As far as the twerking and all that sort of stuff, that doesn't come from Africa. People try to claim that. No, it comes from hip hop culture, and particularly twerking came from, I believe, um, it came from Louisiana, from like places like New Orleans back in the 90s. So that's not African culture. Like, black Americans have been divorced from their African roots from for 400 years. So whatever we're doing here does not reflect African culture. If anything, black Africans back in the continent have been mimicking stuff that we do here in the United States. Doc Spencer says, "Don't say all the culture is trash." I'm not saying all, but the black community largely is trash. Sorry. That's how a lot of black men feel nowadays. That's why we're leaving. That's why we don't support. That's why we don't support the way the hip hop is gone with people like Sexy Red and Ice Spice and all these other little dumb bitches who can't rap. Like, yeah, we had those sort of females back in the day, but at least these female rappers who did stuff like that were actual MCs. Lil Kim and Foxy Brown were actual MCs. If you don't know the difference between an MC and a rapper, you don't know hip hop. But people like Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion and Sexy Red, these aren't MCs. They're just strippers doing music. All the Ice Spice songs sound exactly the same. All she can do is twerk her little Ronald McDonald looking ass. Like, she looks like Ice Spice looks like the bastard child of Ronald McDonald and Beyonce. When did you get out again, bruh? What are you talking about? You mean the black community, or like, don't know what you're talking about? Anyway, Anjit says the native African people I've met in my life were were well versed and very well behaved. Most of the brain rot usually comes from North America. Exactly, exactly. Black American culture is toxic. Ty Gamer says finished uni less than a week ago for cybersecurity. You can work remotely, but is it worth it if you know you ain't gonna move to another country? Yeah, it's still worth it. Cybersecurity is like a burgeoning field, and it's only become more so. This is literally why we now have Space Force, a whole separate branch of the military just dedicated to um, issues dealing with space warfare and cybersecurity. Sorry, if, I hope I still got everyone. I had to reconnect briefly, but I'm still seeing everyone in the chat. I see everyone still here. Um, but yeah, it's definitely worth because it gives you, even if you don't move, you still have the option that you can be a digital nomad even if you never go anywhere. But it's good to have that option inside with the cybersecurity offers you that you can work remotely, because maybe you don't move out of the country, but maybe you want to move from your current state. Like say you live in like, I don't know, like Idaho, excuse me, and you want to move somewhere more exciting, like I don't know, New York or LA or Seattle, Miami. You have the option because you can work remotely wherever you want. So it's definitely good. And like I said, cybersecurity is a burgeoning field. We have a whole area in the military called Cyber Command, which is headquartered here in Maryland at Fort Meade, where we also have the NSA. NSA works closely with Cyber Command and at Fort Meade. Son of Sawayo says, yes, Africans have been imitating USA culture, so that's why we're beating it out of our young people. I don't blame you. Beat it out of them by any means. Cam says, you like to dance a lot? Huh? I don't see how that's relevant, but no. I hope these are still the current comments, because guys, like I said, when it reconnected, I wasn't able to see some. Oh, okay. I can still see comments, guys, so keep them coming. Doc Spencer says B1. That's your answer. I don't know what B1 is. Cam says, sir, Step and Fetch is a colored icon in Hollywood. No, it's not. What are you talking about? I don't know if you're trolling or you're. Step and Fetch It is something that most people who aren't from the baby boomer generation would even know about. No one knows about Step and Fetch It from the millennial Gen Z generations. Not even a lot of people from Generation X, my generation, know about the Step and Fetch It thing. That's something baby boomers know about. I've listened to a little bit of Jordan Peterson, since he has his background as a clinical psychologist, and he talks about a lot of topics that Steven Pinker has also touched upon as well. I don't agree with everything Jordan Peterson says, but I think like a lot of other people in the manosphere, like Andrew Tate and stuff like that, I think they get the right diagnoses of problems. I just think their prognoses of those problems aren't that great. But if Laylee is still here, like I said, I hope she didn't take offense. But yeah, that's how a lot of us actually think. Like a lot of the pro-blacks, the hoteps, and black women have tried to shame black men into staying within the community and dating just black women by saying, well, your mama black, or you must hate your mama, or all these sorts of shaming tactics. But they don't realize shaming tactics don't work on men. Shaming tactics is something that works with as a way to keep women in line. Shaming tactics have never kept men in line, not rational men, and it's not working. And like I said, the actual secret of the whole your mama black and you must not like your mama is that honestly a lot of us don't. And I spelled out reasons above why they don't, talking with my own background. And like I said, my own background is nothing as bad as some other people's backgrounds dealing with their single mothers. Some people had it a lot worse than me. So the Amos and Andy show was brilliant but flawed comedy. Yeah, but like I said, no one that was from like what the 50s or 60s. No one in this era is familiar with Amos and Andy. Like I don't know how old you are, KM, but again, I'm in my 40s and I've never seen Amos and Andy. I only knew of Step It and Fetch It because it's been mentioned in other things that I've watched. I've never seen them before. But no one in this era is familiar with Amos and Andy, so I don't know if you're from another country and you still watch this or whatever, but Amos and Andy and Step It, Fetch It, whatever, are not relevant to this era. No one knows about them who's under 50 years old. So that's the way it says the difference between Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate is that the former cries on TV. Eh, no. So both of them have had times where they've shown their emotional their they've shown emotion on camera. That is human. People tried to mock Jordan for having a human moment on camera, and that just shows how people don't care about the feelings of males. If anything, it just gave strength to the red pill folks who's talk about how Western culture is toxic, is overly feminist, and they don't care about males. A lot of men, a lot of men now in America don't even want to marry because they feel like it's a trap. There's nothing to gain and everything to lose. The family court system is set up to favor the wife in divorce proceedings. Like a lot of men aren't marrying here in America anymore. That's why they're either choosing to go their own way, such as MGTOW, or traveling abroad to find women, or they just, you know, hooking up, but they're not having relationships. And this is even more so in the black community. But I'm not gonna mock Jordan Peterson for crying because it was something that it was. I remember them talking about it and on another platform and showing how these assholes from the Young Turks were actually making fun of Jordan Peterson, which is why I've unsubscribed from the Young Turks. And I've tried to follow them so many times, but every time I follow the Young Turks, they do something that's stupid, and I can't deal with them. Every once in a while, I'll catch maybe a broadcast that they do, but I'm not following them anymore, and I won't like their content because I think they're a bunch of little leftist dipshits. James Stokes, yeah, I'm not supporting Biden here. Trump. A lot of black men are supporting Trump this year because we're tired of the bullshit from Democrats and these black political leaders who have done nothing for the country, done nothing for the black community. Like the idiot that just got reelected here in Baltimore, Brandon Scott. I feel a lot. There was such a low voter turnout in Baltimore City because people didn't want to choose between Brandon Scott and the former mayor Cheryl Dixon, who got put out of office 20 years ago for embezzlement. Those were the choices. A guy who doesn't do anything about the surging crime violence in Baltimore City, and a bitch who was put out because of because of embezzlement. Doc Spence says Jesse Lee Peterson is not a comedian. You talking about Jordan Peterson, or are we talking about something else? I don't know what you guys talking about. I don't know who Jesse Lee is. Gaffarella says the difference with the JPB and AT is that they both speak similar messages from different ends of the spectrum. My thing is, I think Andrew Tate is black pill. He's not a red pill. He's black pill. Black pill people just are in black black people. Black pill people are just indifferent. Like like they're just like kind of nihilistic and don't care, and they'll just take advantage of the people who are either blue pill or red pill. But they will speak similar in the similar messages to red pill, but they're kind of just nihilistic about it. I think that's where Andrew Tate is. Jordan Peterson, I don't even think he would he would put what his thoughts into those categories: blue pill, red pill, black pill. But I think he might be more seen as a red pill. Juiced up says BBL Drizzy. I'm wondering, did he really get one though? I mean, because I've heard he also got a nose job, so his nose can look less black. But whatever. James, I don't want to hear that propaganda about Biden, my friend. He didn't do shit for the community. He didn't roll out millions of jobs in the black community. Where are you getting this propaganda? No, he didn't. He gave some black woman a job in the Supreme Court, Ketanji Jackson or whatever, who's married to a white man, by the way. Um, he didn't do anything. He promised student loan debt elimination up to a certain amount, but he also promised it to eliminate it just for HBCU students, and he did none of that. Like, he did try to get the student loan thing done and got shut down by Congress because he did it in a dumb way by trying to do it through the COVID Relief Act instead of doing it through the Higher Education Act. So it got shut down when he had the powers to do it through the Higher Education Act. And then he did nothing for the HBCUs that he promised in his campaign. He's done nothing for black people. He's just pandered to them, saying, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. This motherfucker eulogized a KKK leader back in the day, Robert Byrd. I know because Robert Byrd, our former stadium in the University of Maryland was named for Robert Byrd. They changed the name. He also, back in the 70s, early 80s, talked glowingly about Strom Thurmond, whom he said he worked with across the aisles in Congress. Strom Thurmond, a white supremacist. He also was against uh, desegregating schools. So fuck Biden. That's why most black people ain't voting for him. But you can, if you want to vote for him, you know, congrats to you. I won't. I did last time. I won't vote for Democrats again anytime soon unless it's Bernie Sanders, unless he decides to run again. But only he's an independent. But when he ran for president twice, he ran as a Democrat because he knows that independent candidates aren't going to make it aren't going to make it past the primaries and to the general election. But he's an independent who ran as a Democrat, so he will be the only one I will ever support again as a Democrat would be Bernie Sanders. Other than that, fuck Biden. He's done nothing for the black community except pander, like Obama did. Pander. Okay, Kunta Kinte. So this was the conversation for you, Kunta Kinte. From, you remember, 3 days ago, I said we would address what you wanted to talk about. So this is your time right now, Kunta Kinte. Get it all out, man. I actually started yesterday. You weren't there, so we're doing a sequel to yesterday because I had a technical malfunction. What do I think of Candace Owens? So I agree with a lot of the stuff she says, but not everything. I think I can't get with her little anti-Semitic stuff that she talks about in align with Kanye West. Like when she starts saying that anti-Semitic stuff, I can't get with it. But a lot of stuff, otherwise, I do agree with her. I've watched her podcast just because, it was so common to hate on her in the black community. I was like, I'm hating on this woman. Let me actually see what she actually says. And I started listening to her podcast. I'm like, she's not as evil as people make her out to be. A lot of her stuff she said was rational. But I don't agree with everything she says, of course. Gaffrella says, whatever the pill, did you get the message? Well, I can think for myself, so I don't consume political content to get how to think. But um, and especially, I have a background in psychology and philosophy, so I don't need people to teach me what to think or how to think, unlike the masses. But I agree with certain things that Jordan Peterson says, not everything. I think a lot of time he says a lot of, um, I don't know, word salad. To be honest, some of the stuff he says is word salad. So I'm not going to go out and buy any of his books like the way I would buy a Steven Pinker book. I've bought several Steven Pinker's books. What's up, a cat named Scamper? He says, or she says, sorry, is it true or is it really facts? In reference to what? Justo says he got a nose job, a BBL, and penis enlargement. I haven't heard the penis enlargement, but I've heard the nose job and I heard the BBL. It's all really ditty stuff, right? But yeah, make sure I let that be seen. James, you came on the platform before spreading your. This is not a platform for you to try to get people to vote for Biden. If that's whom you're voting for, that's fine. You're not going to convince me, and you're not going to convince a lot of these people in the chat. Half of these people aren't even living in America, buddy, so they don't care one way or the other. And trying to spread that stuff is not going to matter anyway, because mathematically he's not going to win. Half of his base doesn't even like him because of his stance with the Israeli-Palestine conflict. And then another part of his base aren't going to vote for him because black men are moving away from the Democratic Party en masse. Like, there's still going to be he's still going to have overwhelming black support, which is a problem that, to me, black people as a voting bloc just vote Democrat without leveraging their votes. But in any case, mathematically, he's not going to win, and all the polls show that. So you can stump for him as much as you want. It's not going to change how I think. So, batshit crazy still, and we still see. Senator Ware says you are talking about American politics now to mine, and it's late on my end. Thanks for a lovely show as usual. Let me know when we will meet for coffee. Got you. Yeah, I wasn't meaning to talk about politics. That was what someone else was bringing up. I was telling him this is not the day to talk about Biden versus Trump. I don't care. Mung Bean says favorite type of bean. Don't have one. I don't have a favorite type of bean. But your handle says Mung Bean. Are you Filipino? Just by Anjit says you're real for that. Most of the thoughts conjured up in the brains of the common man nowadays is something they saw early on social media. Yeah, I don't. People go to social media to get how to think. They get riled up and are outraged by something they see online. Like every month, there's the cause celebrate. Currently, it's the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But Shaken Bottle says, I like when Peterson was talking about the Bible and how it's more metaphoric. It opened my eyes a little bit and made me realize I was taking it too literal, and that was my main problem with it. Yeah, getting off topic a bit. Yeah, the Bible's like one of my philosophy professors said a long time ago, and he taught philosophy of religion. He was like, it was an open question even when the Bible was written, that it was to be taken literally. He said, I'm pretty sure even back then, most people just took it as homilies, which are like basically like stories to teach you certain morals, stuff like that. It was unlikely that people took the stories within Genesis and stuff like that to be literal history. We do so now in reverence to something that's over 2,000 years old, but is uh, you don't have to be atheist to realize that you shouldn't take religious scriptures literally. I think that's just a matter of being intelligent and educated enough to know that these aren't things you take literally. Only fundamentalists take these things literally, and that's of all the different religious doctrines, whether you're talking about the Torah, the Bible, or the Quran. What do I know about Jason Black or Tariq? Um, I think heard the name Jason Black before, but I don't remember. And Tariq, are you talking about Tariq Nasheed? I mean, like some of the stuff he says, but again, I'm not pro-black, so I don't. Most of the stuff they talk about is irrelevant to me. I don't care about the black community. I don't care about dating black women, and that's pretty much it. So I really don't. The stuff they talk about just isn't relevant to me because I don't really care about the black community anymore. As far as I'm concerned, it's not worth saving. I agree with the SYSBM movement, Save Yourself Black Men. That's where I am. So pro blacks want black men to stay and save the community. I'm not doing that. I'm not saving a community that doesn't want to be saved. And at the cost of what? The cost of my own personal ambitions and desires. I'm not doing it. So whereas I do, respect Tariq Nasheed and his views, I just don't care about pro-black issues. And G says, I never voted for Biden in my life because I'm from India. Exactly. I was trying to say like half of the audience is not even from America, so it's kind of irrelevant to be kind of cheerleading for that man in the string. I mean, I get James' passion. That's fine, but he's not going to convince me if that's whom he think he's going to convince. So, cat named Scamper says all black men want is a big booty woman, some jewelry, money, and a Hellcat. No, we don't. That's the opposite of what we want, which is why we are leaving those women. Anyone can have a big butt. I've, you go to the Philippines, they have big butts. Like, and I'm not joking. Like, when I first came back from the Philippines and came back to my office, I had a cousin that works for me. That I mean, not for me, works with me in my office, and she was saying, "How was it? How?" She was like, What are the women like there?" Because she's bisexual, and I said, "Well, I said the best way to explain Filipino women is that think of Chinese women with Puerto Rican bodies." I hope you're still there, Chloe. But yeah, so think of women who are Chinese but have Puerto Rican bodies. I said that's your Filipina. Um, but yeah, every woman has big booties in every community, so that's not enough to keep a black man. So that's not what we want. Jewelry. Do you see me with any jewelry? Literally, the only jewelry you see me have is a wedding ring. We're not all in, so I don't know if you're trolling, but I I was charitable enough to take that as a semi serious comment, quasi serious. James says I'm not trying to get you to vote for Biden. I'm for Bernie the most. I was a Bernie supporter, and when he got pushed out because he supported Hillary's, I still voted for her. Because he still supported Biden, I supported Biden. But I'm just not doing it this time around. I'm just not doing it. I mean, because it was going to originally, I was just going to sit out the election the way I sat out the midterms, because the midterms here in Maryland, I just didn't care about. I didn't care about the governor whom they elected, Westmore, who's the first black governor of Maryland, because he's a wannabe Obama. I don't like him. He's disingenuous. He lied and actually told people he's from Baltimore. This Negro grew up in Tacoma Park, Maryland, which is a suburb outside of D.C., Washington, D.C. He was and then was raised in New York City. He's never lived in Baltimore except when he came to Hopkins for college. Going to college somewhere is not, you cannot say that's where you were raised. That's just crazy. That's like me going when I was in the military, like going into training in Fort Gordon, Georgia, and trying to lie and say I was raised in Augusta, Georgia. he's full of Wes Moore is full of shit, and I had no interest in him or his competitor nor anyone else up for election during the midterm elections in 2022. So I just sat it out because I'm politically I'm apathetic about electoral politics. But I realized being politically apathetic, I can voice my derision of certain politicians by voting against them. And you're gonna see a lot of black people either sitting on the couch during election day, or they're gonna vote for the orange man. I'm voting for the orange man. I'm voting. I'm not even Republican, but because Maryland has become so crazy, like unchecked violence in Baltimore, um, the just other stuff going on in Maryland that only people from Maryland, will understand what I'm talking about. Um, I'm just voting Republican completely down the ballot this year, which I've never done. But as an independent, I can vote whichever way I feel, and that's how I'm looking at it. I I think Democrats have run Maryland into the ground. Biden is neck and neck with Trump. It depends on the polls. Almost every poll out there shows Trump with the advantage. The dark horse in the room is RFK Jr. The question is, if with RFK in the mix, whom would he take the most votes from? Would he take the votes that would have otherwise went to Biden, or would he take votes that would have otherwise went to Trump? And of course, again, Biden is going to lose, and then they're going to blame RFK the way they've blamed other third-party candidates in the past, such as with Gore and Bush. Cam says, I like Biden. Yeah, it's nothing wrong with liking Biden. My point is, you're not going to convince me or other people. I think by this point, right now, everyone has already decided whom they're voting for, or if they decided they're not voting at all. But no one is going to be convinced by propaganda or through argumentation alone. Andrew says, yeah, Peterson's playlist on the psychoanalysis of the Bible is a deep venture. I'm actually on the 5th lecture. Andrew, remind me, buddy, we were talking about like philosophy several streams ago, and you were asking me about some things, and I was telling you, because of my background in analytic philosophy, I don't really follow ancient history as much when it comes to philosophy because it's kind of irrelevant. That was our conversation, I believe, because I can tell from what you're talking about here that you still that's your interest. And I was telling you, you might be more interested in continental philosophy because that follows in that trend of stuff like psychoanalysis and postmodernism and social constructivism and stuff like that. Stuff that I'm not interested in, but would have a home in the domain of thought that makes up continental philosophy. Juiced Up says personality test online. You talking about like the Meyer-Briggs? I don't know what you're talking about. All right. I finally see some replies from Kuta Kente. I was literally waiting for you for this conversation, literally waiting for it. He said, you never answered my question, bro. Why point out that the woman is married to the white man? What woman? That you gotta be more specific. You don't date your own, and your channel isn't kind to black women. Because I don't have to be. There's literally tons of other content for people who want to talk about black women. This is not the platform. This is a platform by a black man for the male's point of view. I'm not going to argue the female's point of view. The female's point of view can be literally found everywhere in mainstream media and in other parts of social networking sites. Black men need to have a voice of their own, to voice their own thoughts and concerns that are not tethered to what black women think. So no simping and this pimping over here. You think I'm going to simp for black women, you need to find another content creator. It just won't happen here. Voted for Jesse Jackson. Oh, you are old. I mean, sorry, I don't mean to call you old, K. But yeah, if you voted for Jesse Jackson, you're an older fella. Here, I'll tell you this though. When I was a little kid, I actually went to a Jesse Jackson rally. I must have been 5 years old, maybe six. And I remember being there with my mother, and this white man actually put me on his shoulder so that I could see Jesse Jackson talking. So, like I said, all this anti-Semitic and anti-white um, thought that's in the black community, I have never felt that because I've always felt befriended by people of other races. Like I said, I'm 5 or 6 years old, and this white man just picks me up and puts me on his shoulders so that I could see Jesse Jackson at this rally back in the early 80s when he ran for president. But if you are old enough to vote for him, you're much older than I am, sir. So let me show you my respect. I respect my elders unlike people do today. Um, Dimitri Chavez says, "What's your highest level of education? What do you do for a living?" So my highest level of education is grad school. What I do for a living is lead generation and direct marketing. James Dishman says, "You can read the Bible day and night for the whole life until the Lord decide you're ready for the truth. He will not release it to you." Shaken Bottle says, "That's a great point. Sorry for going off topic. I just joined." I didn't see your previous comment, Shaken Bottles. It might be down further in the comment section. I'm always going to be like several minutes behind you guys, so please offer me that grace that I am going to be behind you because I want to make sure I address everyone's comments as I'm going through the stream. Angie says, "Do you like biryani?" Yes, I do like biryani. Um, I love Indian food. Like I said, I don't know if you heard me say this, Angie, earlier or in the previous stream, but back my last year of high school, one of my closest friends in the world was East Indian. And the funny thing is, like when I lived in the DC area, I knew what I knew which household was Indian because I could smell the curry spice. And for a long time I was scared to try the food out because it smelled too spicy. Like I didn't have a problem against spicy food, but I never had curry. Like outside of as a little kid, I never really had curry spice food. So when I finally tried it, it was delicious as hell. And I love Indian food now. It's not something I would eat like maybe every week, but I like Indian food. And I don't think my wife has had. I told her let's go to an Indian restaurant, so she was happy. She was like, "Yay!" So I was like, "All right, let's go to an Indian restaurant." So that's gonna be something I take her to do. So yeah, I like biryani rice. I like it better than regular rice actually. KM says James Baldwin was as important as Malcolm X in the colored community. But I don't know if he was just as important, but he had his role, as part of the Harlem Renaissance and some of his thoughts that he expressed. I think he was also a role model for black homosexual men, I believe, right? Dimitri Chavez says, "Is Maryland a nice place to live? What is the cost of living for a 1 bedroom, would you say?" Uh, I don't know because it depends on what part of Maryland. Maryland is like a microcosm of the entire country. So you have Western Maryland, right, which is like the mountains region. Then you have Central Maryland, which is the bulk of what people think of Maryland as being Central Maryland, like the Baltimore, Washington area. That's where I live. It's probably the most expensive region to live in, not just in the state, but within the country. This is one of the most expensive areas to live in, particularly DC. Baltimore is the cheaper part of the BW area, but it still can be expensive if you want to live somewhere where you don't want to hear gunshots. And even in my neighborhood, I hear gunshots, and I live in the suburbs. Um, and then you have Eastern Shore, which if you ever saw Wedding Crashers back in the day, that's they were on Eastern Shore. And then you have Southern Maryland, which hardly even feels like Maryland. Seems like it's more part of Virginia. So you have those four regions: Western Maryland, Central Maryland, Eastern Shore, and Southern Maryland, and they all have different cost of living. But where I live in Central Maryland, the cost of living is very high. A 1 bedroom, I would say, unless you're unless you are making over 50,000 or so, it's going to be uncomfortable for you to live in a nice area. You can live in a bad area for under for someone who makes less than 50,000, but it's not going to be the best area to live in Central Maryland. Now, if you don't live like far out in a rural area, even out towards Western Maryland, you can. It's a cheaper cost of living, but you're living in a more remote parts, not tethered to like DC or Baltimore. Um, and is it a nice place to live? Outside of Baltimore, yes. Baltimore is horrible. And even the suburbs surrounding Baltimore are horrible. Where I live, the violence has become so widespread in Baltimore, has spilled out into the suburbs. So what people are doing, they are even moving farther out into the rural parts of Maryland, or they're just moving out of Maryland in general and moving to the DC area towards the North Virginia parts or the parts of Maryland that are like Howard County, Montgomery County, which are the wealthiest counties in the country. Um, but yeah, it depends on what part of Maryland. But Maryland is not a state that I want to be in much longer. Shaken Bowel says, I live in Kansas, very conservative state. Yep. And it's usually very boring unless you're in an area with a lot of tweakers, like anywhere near Topeka and Kansas City. But even then, not terrible for the most part. Okay. I heard a little bit about Kansas. I haven't really heard it being a problematic place to live, just not a very exciting place to live, like you said. Topeka is a real shit show on some streets, though. Like West Lincoln is like a third world country. Is there like a lot of problems with like opiate abuse in Kansas? I wonder because I've heard that. Manly Bunny says he doesn't want to argue with females because he wants to be the female in the argument. Are you referring to me? Because I don't think I've addressed that in one way or the other. Shaken Bottle says, so I don't know. I just think it depends on the people around you. Yeah. Lisa says twerking comes from doing the butt in Washington, D.C. No. Twerking. Oh, I get it because you talking about the old go go song, doing the butt. Stop. But no, so that's a famous go go band that did that song. Um, so shaking your butt isn't something new, but twerking comes out of hip hop culture from Louisiana, like New Orleans. Like twerking was actually short for is actually twerking is actually a shortening of the actual phrase, which was something and work it. I forgot the whole phrase, but twerking is actually a, a shortening of that phrase, which symbolized what the style of hip hop and dancing coming from that era of early 90s New Orleans hip hop culture. It comes from New Orleans originally, not from DC. Bro, he looked like Franklin the Turtle all grown up. Don't he? Didn't he have a turtleneck though, right? Shaking Bow says, "You're all good, man. I understand the lag. Appreciate it." Because, like I said, I'm always gonna be behind in the comments because I want to read everything. So, if guys have like replied to something that I said, I'm not gonna see it until I get all the way down the chat. Cam says analytics and the management of a Budweiser or McDonald's in the mixed community of Mexican or colored. Rowan says, what advice would you give to an 18-year-old version of yourself? Oh, man, so much. One, ignore these women. um, 18. What was I doing? So I went 18. I was already in college, well, community college. Um, I was working two jobs, was living with my father. Um, uh, I don't know. Either I would have went into the military earlier instead of waiting until I was 20. So I would have did it 2 years I would have did it at 17 instead of at 20. That might be one thing. Two is that I might have tried to. So I wanted to originally go to Howard University because my father used to be a professor there. The problem was he got laid off when I graduated high school, so I couldn't go there because I would have been able to go there for free. Um, but I may have still tried to have applied early when I was 16, 17, so maybe I could have got in and started my education there for free. Um, what else? I would have taken college much more seriously in the beginning. I did towards the end, but in the beginning, as a 17, 18, 17-year-old college student, 18-year-old college student, I didn't take it as seriously. But that also, Starbucks first opened in Maryland back when I was 18. And back then, they offered stock. They 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 were given stock stock options to all the employees. Even if you were part time, they offered stock options. And this is in the mid '90s. Imagine having stock options in Starbucks in the '90s before they blew up. I wish I did, but at the time when I was 18, I hadn't even drank coffee. I didn't start drinking coffee till I was 24. Um, so when I actually applied for Starbucks and they were asking me, when I was applying to be a barista, what type of coffee do I like and stuff like that. And I told them I don't drink coffee. And I think that lost me the job because I was stupid enough to tell them I don't drink coffee. But I wish I didn't say that and I had got the job and I could have heavily invested in those stock options that they offered even their part-time employees. That would have set me up pretty nicely. Um, uh, Also, I would have started dating interracially at that time as well instead of waiting until I was like, I don't know, about 22, 23 before I started dating interracially. So, Lisa says black men blame their inability to fight white supremacy on black women. We aren't the ones suppressing you, sir. That wasn't that's but that wasn't the argument. So that's sort of that's sort of a red herring, which means irrelevant to the issue, because that wasn't really what I dis- that wasn't really what I was discussing. What I was discussing was in the context of interracial relationships that many pro-black many people in the pro-black sector and black women will try to shame black men for interracially dating by telling them they must hate their mothers and other sorts of tactics, which don't work because rational men don't respond to shaming, because men don't keep other men in line through shaming tactics. We keep other men in line through money, through argument, through sheer sheer physicality. That's how men are motivated. We're not motivated by shaming tactics. And this is what we see happening. So that's what I was addressing, Lisa. Okay. And Jeet says, not like I'm one to say what advice I give to my 18-year-old self, because I'm literally 19. But to my 1 year ago self, I say, stop going all nuts over planning the perfect day and just get to work. Okay. I mean, if anybody wants, like someone your age, Angie, they want some sort of advice. Like I said, I don't know if you checked it out yet, but I've given like a whole safe kid safe live stream on stuff talking about college and BS majors and stuff like that. Um, Please check that out. Ken Wisses do a 1-2 combo. I don't know if you're the guy who asked me to do push-ups before, but this is a vertical live stream. I can't do anything physical while doing a vertical live stream because a vertical live stream is done from my phone, so I can't hold the phone and do physical things while I'm holding the phone. And if you guys want me to do any sort of either fitness or martial arts related things, hit me in the Cash App and I'll do it. I don't, like the Joker once said, if if you're good at something, never do it for free. Shaken Bottle says, yeah, Kansas has a lot of drug addicts, probably because it's so boring. No, it's an opiate addiction crisis all across the country, and it affects both rural and inner cities. Like if you go downtown Baltimore, you'll see it looks like The Walking Dead with these people early in the morning, getting their opiate addiction, because in Baltimore and most other Northeast cities, all the street drugs are laced with fentanyl or xylazine. Shaken Bottles goes on to say, but on West Lincoln and Topeka, you could wake up in the morning and have to deal with a chick in a bikini setting on a bucket of glass she brought into your front yard, then try to get in your car. Ugh. Clay says, where are you from? I'm in Baltimore. Shaken Bottles also says, while you're fighting with her about getting away from your house and telling her to go to a doctor. Yeah, good luck with that. Roadrunner says, where do you feel most centered and happy? What do you love most about your home? Huh? Those are very vague questions, and I don't currently love where I am. I think I've made that clear that I hate Baltimore, and I don't like a lot of it. Well, some of my neighbors are cool, but I don't like the community. It's, Baltimore is heavily um, well, it's a lot of violence and drugs, and in the city, you also have the dirt bike culture, which is a problem. You have black Democratic leaders who aren't willing to do anything about it. Like they just passed a law across the state to open up resources for youth criminals, but it does nothing about punishing them. It just like gives them like rehabilitation services. No, lock their asses up. And if you can't lock their asses up, lock their parents up. Like I said, I would be in favor of severe Singapore type laws within this state and in the country nationwide to curb crime and violence. Dimitri Chavez says, should the government ban TikTok? I believe they should. Yes, I believe they should. It's Chinese spyware. So yeah, I'm completely in favor of it being banned. Although the law actually isn't a ban, what it does, it forces them to sell. So TikTok has to either sell to an American company within 270 days, or they will get, or all the American tech companies will not be able to keep it on their devices. I think that makes sense. TikTok is owned by a Chinese company, which is very closely allied to the People's Liberation Army of China, and in China, also every company must have a board of executives of CCP, the Communist Party of China, who make up that board. This is not something, and they have to turn over all data when requested to the Communist Party, which means all your information. Same thing with Temu and WeChat. And Jesus, most social media is anyways. Rowan says, is there a place in the world that you feel, why do you gotta make your questions more salient? Like it's just too vague. Like I don't like questions that sound like a projective test. You're gonna have to make it a concrete question. It's too vague. Like they're just too vague questions. Anjit says there's this place 5 or 6 kilometers from the school I went to, like a very rural area with vast farms and very windy. I like to go sit there with my friends and eat food. we bring with us. Sounds cool. Shaking Bottles is, what do you think about reparations? I'm all for it. um, we were supposed to get it back in the 1800s. Now, there's a good argument, whether you want to call it conservative, not that there shouldn't be these sorts of policies. Um, but the problem with that is so many other groups have already received such sorts of resources, whether they're talking about indigenous people, Jewish people, um, the Japanese people after internment in the 40s, um, as well as some black people within certain communities, that this is something that should be given to foundational black Americans. And we're talking about cash reparations. Um, and also, I think that African nations owe black Americans reparations. So, again, another thing Dennis Sperling spoke up about. So I'm giving him his credit on that too. Give that man his flowers. And Jude says, I once told a friend to bring wood to light a bonfire, and the dumbass brought plywood, and we got so drunk I literally lit my hand off. Like, oh shit, with kerosene. Yeah, that's another reason I don't drink. I want to be sober. I like being clear-headed in anything I do. Dimitri Savas is, when you go to a bar, what do you get? Do you smoke? I don't drink or smoke, which is why I'm in my mid 40s and people still think I'm in my 30s, and I work out every day. When I go to a bar, I get food. I get, buffalo wings, pizza, a burger, tacos, whatever. I don't drink or smoke when I go to a bar. And I don't go looking for women, because women at bars are not the type of women I want to meet. So, nope. Cam says, what would you do if you heard on the news that NATO has intervened in the Russia-Ukraine war? Nothing. There's nothing I could do. I would just be like, oh, well, here comes World War III. That's all I can say. Like, it's nothing. There's nothing I could do. Well, I know what I'm sorry, Cam. That's wrong. I do know what I would do. Passport. I would use this passport and be back overseas with my wife and not have to deal with any of the bullshit from the blowback. Also, I have a bug out bag. I keep my bug out bag next to me every day, right here in my room. If shit goes south, bug out bag. And I'm going to do a separate video on just having a bug out bag. For those who don't know what a bug out bag, that's an emergency kit someone keeps in case there's any sort of crisis, whether an economic crisis, a natural disaster, stuff like that. And usually a bug out bag is also sometimes called a 72-hour emergency kit, because theoretically it should last you 3 days if you have to go it on foot to get to a safer destination. And FEMA recommends actually everyone should have a bug out bag in case of perhaps a natural disaster, because the most common reason for people to have to encounter a bug out situation is usually like floods, wildfires, stuff like that. But a lot of people also are worried about economic crises and stuff like that, or even political crises, which I think is way less common. But in Ukraine, it would have been handy to have a bug out bag when you were trying to get across the border out of Ukraine 2 years ago. So that would be my answer. I hear that NATO is into the U.S. the Russo-Ukraine war. I'm heading back to East Asia, Southeast Asia, and I'm staying my butt there. Angie says, I smoke socially, but I don't drink much. Don't like the effects of alcohol. It makes people dumb and violent. I don't like any sort of drugs, because I want to be always rational in my thought and behavior. I can't be rational in my thought and behavior if my mind is flooded with chemicals. I'm not going to do it. Um, and I don't drink. And not only that, but alcohol is a neurotoxin, so it actually destroys your brain over time. So definitely not going to. So I stopped drinking after college. Um, do I have kids? No, no, 172. I don't have any kids. Mula says convert to Islam. That ain't gonna happen. I was a Muslim when I was a young child, but my mother converted. So as the mother does, so does the kid. But I'm currently not religious at all. I think they're all fairy tales. Shaken Bottle says, as a young, poor white man, I feel like anybody that hasn't had a chance to build wealth in some way should be given a chance. I don't really understand how we let a minority of people or corporations, well, that's a whole topic for a whole different day. But yeah, Cam, I think I answered you. I'm not going to the mountains. I'm using my passport and I'm leaving the country. Why would the mountains be any safer? Shaken Bottle says, gain so much power over the land and money. And just said, was that a Pikachu? Yep, that's a Pikachu. Right next, and there's a Snoopy right next to him. The problem I see with any kind of cash reparations is that it's all just going to go back to the same places it's currently at without a foundation like land you actually own to build on. So my thing is, I know a lot of people poo-poo on the idea of cash reparations, but the gist of it all is give the people the money and let them decide how they want to spend it. Are a lot of people not going to spend it wisely? Absolutely. A lot of people are not going to spend it wisely. But that's if you're giving them reparations, not really for those folks to say, and you better use it this way. No, let them decide. If they use it, if they use it, if they misuse it, like on that old Dave Chappelle episode when they were like buying trucks of cigarettes and stuff like that, like, I'm rich, bitch. Like, hey, that's on them. Like, if they want to misspend their money, so be it. But whatever. Uh, Angie says pizza or sandwiches. Depends on what type of sandwiches we're talking about. If you're talking about sandwiches like cold cuts, then yeah, pizza. But if you include in sandwiches like subs, then subs. Like what's for dinner? I don't know yet. um, but yeah, so back to the actual nugget of the conversation was, you know, black men are rejecting the pro-black argument against interracial relationships, and the whole counter argument that you must hate your mother if you prefer women of other races isn't going to is not going to corral black men back to the black community, because for a lot of us we don't like our black mothers because the way we were treated as children and even as adults by them. They emasculated us, they abused us, they neglected us, they embarrassed us, they made us find black women unappealing. And so when the men had options, they went to college, they went into the military, they found women of other races they found more attractive. Now some guys, you know, may not want these women just because they don't like their behavior, but they might be otherwise still attracted to these women. I'm not the same. It's not the behavior that I reject. It's just that I don't find them as attractive as women of other races. That's my situation. But yes, I definitely had those problems with having a mother with psychological issues growing up. Dimitri Evans says, "What are you bringing to cookout if we can make one happen?" Depends on what you like. So, um, I might bring some Filipino food. You know, Jollibees. Could bring some Jollibees with me, or some actual like serious like Filipino food, like adobo, like chicken adobo, um, stuff like that. Um, I love Filipino food. One thing is, you should definitely like the culture of the women you're gonna date, because if not, it's gonna be hard. Cam says pizza is a lazy man dinner. Yeah, but pizza's delicious. Love pizza. I remember once I pointed out to my father, I said, pizza hits every food group. He told me to shut up, but I was like, it does. I was like, you have your dairy, your cheese. I said, you have your, fruit and veggies with, the tomato sauce, and maybe the vegetables you put on your pizza. You have your meat, um, from the meat toppings you put on it, and you have your grains, from the crust and the base of your pizza. Um, it's I don't know. It's an all around good dinner. It's Of course it's a lazy man's dinner. That's great. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. No one wants to. I mean, most guys aren't going to sit there and make a 2 hour meal every day. And there's so many varieties of pizza. From Sicilian pizza to Hawaiian pizza. You you can you know it's pretty versatile. But I'm gonna bring this to an end soon, unless I have some other questions about the whole your mama black, pro blackity, black people, interracial relationships, stuff like that. Like, I think I answered Lisa's question. I mean, I tried to. What she was saying wasn't really directly relevant to the topic, but I didn't want to avoid what she was asking. Um, but this was for Kunta Kinte, like, who asked me a question several days ago. So I expected him to contribute more to the conversation, because this was literally for him, who asked me several days ago about this when I was trying to discuss other things. But Kunta Kinte hasn't really contributed since then, and he was saying I'm not kind to what black women on my channel. And to answer him from earlier up on the in the chat, and from several days ago, is this channel isn't meant to be kind to them. This is meant to be a black man being able to voice and his thoughts and other issues from a black male perspective. Like, it's not meant to cater to them. I was like, there's literally thousands of places in mainstream media that caters to black women. Just look on daytime TV, from The View to Tamarin, whatever her name is, and it's like an Oprah and Tyler Perry, who's basically a black woman, as far as I'm concerned. He's a bitch, but um, yeah, I mean, there's literally thousands upon thousands of content out there in mainstream media and in social networking that can give you a voice for black women. This is not the platform for it here on my channel. So if you want that, go somewhere else. When I don't simp, there's no simping here. So if that's what you want, too bad. You're not gonna get it here. Go somewhere else, like O'Shea Duke Jackson or somebody, or Umar Johnson. These people love holding black. Well, O'Shea doesn't, but people like Umar Johnson love putting black men's feet to the fire, but don't say anything about black women. How they destroyed the black community when they since the 60s, when they chose social welfare over having husbands in the home. Malcolm X said welfare destroyed his family. Um, and we literally saw this in the 60s. Up until the 50s, the black community was the most married group in America, and that fell in the 60s with them accepting social welfare, which required the men not be in the home. And we saw the rise of single mother households, which would have been looked at in shame, um, 40 years ago. Now it's the norm. Most people that grew up in this, most people who were born in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that's all they known as single mother households. It's problematic and it's toxic. So I don't see any other comments unless I lost the chat. Uh, but did I lose you guys? If you guys are still here, can someone type a one to let me know you guys are still here? If not, I know that I've lost my connection. So yeah, it looks like I lost my connection, guys. I'm gonna end this in case I lost everyone. Where's my other phone? All right, I think I lost connection, guys. So I'm gonna call this a day. But again, I appreciate everyone who's. I know I recently reached 1,000 subs. So again, thank you guys a lot for subscribing. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. Like the, you know, like the channel, like the video, hit the notification, share. But I'm trying to find my other phone so I could actually check what happened, and I can't find it. So, oy vey. Yeah, I don't know where that other. Yeah, I literally don't know where that other phone went. Oh, there it is. So, again, thank you guys for contributing to the chat. This was for you, Kunta Kinte, if you're still there. I was waiting for your comments, but your comments didn't make sense. I thought we were going to talk about what we wanted to talk about 3 days ago, but this was not something to talk about. Why am I not giving voice to black women? I'm a black man. Why would I do that? I'm not a simp. Plain and simple. Also, there's plenty of other venues for you to find content about that. And third, you're not in America, so you don't understand the a lot of the issues that going on right now. There's an ongoing gender war within the black community between black men and black women, and a lot of black men are just saying, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to have this argument anymore. We're just going to silently go our own way, which is what the whole save yourself black men movement is about. Black men who have moved on said they're no longer going to try to save the black community because they don't want to be saved, and they've disrespected the very men that they need to keep the community going. Why would you save a community that disrespects you and doesn't want to be fixed because they don't want to have accountability for their behavior? And then some of us are traveling and saying, screw the United States altogether. We're just going to go overseas, find women, and maybe even live and work overseas and not even have to deal with whatever's going on here. So whatever happens here is just out of thought, out of mind, which is where I am currently with it. I mean, I'm in the US right now, but I've lived overseas and will probably do so again very soon. And when I do, I'm not coming back, unlike the last time, which I made the mistake of doing. But again, Kunta Kinte, this was specifically for you because you asked for this. Every time people have asked for specific questions, I said we'll address that in a separate live stream and do that. Last week we did that with one of my Marine brothers. He wanted to talk some military stuff, but I wanted to just talk about comic book related stuff at that time. So we did a separate topic 3 days later on just about military branches, which was the best. You can catch that live stream. And I said, Army, because I'm biased. I'm from the Army. But yeah, anytime you guys want to do a certain topic, we can do that live stream. Just make sure that just make sure if you do hop into that stream that you asked me to do, that you actually contribute to the conversation. And Kunta Kinte didn't really do that because I don't really think he's well versed in the whole issue. It seemed rather he just wanted to ask very vague questions to ask me why am I not simping for black women. I don't simp for black women because I'm not interested in dating them, so I really don't care about topics that involve them. But I still like them, but I'm not attracted to them, and I don't date them, and I'm married to someone else outside of the community. And maybe because Kunta Kinte is a guy from Africa, he doesn't understand all those issues. But in any case, I'm gonna wrap this up, guys. It's almost 3 hours. I'm gonna go do some things. So that's it. Thank you.